Hello, everyone. This is the first of hopefully first, it is the first, but hopefully we'll have a few more of these. A remote conversation at the moment, and it's going to be with Cllr Nick Palmer, who I'm going to bring in now. So if we can say hello to Nick.
Hello.
Hello. This is the first time we've ever done anything like this.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will all work okay, and that we get quite a few good questions. So if anybody's got any comments or questions, they can add them in on the comment function, and we can show them up through. So if you've got any questions for Nick, I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Toby. And Toby's our computer expert among many others. So we really appreciate the way he set this up. First of all, I'd like to express every sympathy for Boris Johnson and for everyone who's suffering tonight. It's difficult all over the country, and we are literally all in it together. Also, all the families who've already lost someone. I think the fact that it's happening everywhere doesn't make any individual tragedy less. And we need to support each other. We need to be friends with each other in a way that perhaps we aren't in everyday life. We are approaching the peak, we believe. In France, in Italy, in Spain, in Germany, they followed a very similar pattern to us. And each of them imposed a lockdown a bit before we did. And as a result, they are now entering a period where the rate of deaths has stopped increasing. What we're expecting is that first, we will see a drop-off in the number of new infections. Second, we will see a drop in the number of hospital admissions. And third, we'll see a drop in the number of deaths. This week is likely to be grim, frankly, because we're still getting the deaths of people who contracted the illness some 2 or 3 weeks ago. But we're hoping that we genuinely are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel if we all play our part, which means staying at home, even during the summery Easter period. It's not too much to ask for all our sakes.
Yeah, exactly. It is definitely quite tough for people at the moment. It's especially with the weather being so nice. Some people obviously staying at home and stay inside. But the more we do that, the quicker this will all be over, hopefully. And I would obviously like to extend my sympathies also to Boris Johnson. Obviously, it's quite the last 24 hours has really sort of escalated quite quickly, hasn't it? So it's a stark reminder that this virus is essentially doesn't discriminate against anybody, and it's just the reality of this. Well, thank you for the update, at least nationally. Obviously, your position is as councillor for Godalming Binscombe on Waverley Borough Council. So have you got any kind of update on how Waverley Borough Council is actually trying, what Waverley Borough Council is trying to do to tackle this?
We've got a really positive all-party partnership there. I mean, the council, the executive, which I'm a member of, is a coalition of Labour, Liberal Democrat, Green, Farnham Residents, Independent. And we've also brought in the Conservatives, who are normally in the opposition. We're literally all working together on this. And yeah, I wanted to say a few things about what's happening in Waverley. First, the people who the government is telling us have exceptionally high vulnerability. These are people recovering from cancer operations, people with severe lung conditions. You can see on the government website how they're defining severe vulnerability. They're passing the list of those to the council, and the council is then approaching each person on that list individually, talking to them about delivering food, delivering medicine, whatever else kind of help we can provide. There's a reasonably solid network also of volunteers helping with shopping and support for the elderly and people with existing conditions. So even if you're not one of those really critical cases, you can still get help. And conversely, if you are fit and young, then, like Toby, you might want to volunteer to help. And there's 3 ways to do that. You can go to the Waverley website, which is waverley.gov.uk. That's got a special coronavirus section where you can look for help and you can volunteer. You can Google Surrey coronavirus help and you'll find the community support page there, which is Surrey-wide and enables people both to volunteer and to ask for help. Or you can call them if you'd rather do it by phone. The number is 0300 200 1008. That's 0300 200 1008. But you probably get on faster if you go on the website.
Yep, I can actually show the number up now. I believe that's it. I can listen. I can listen and type at the same time, so that's one good skill. So yeah, 0300 200 1008, and the Waverley Borough Council website is also here as well, www.waverley.gov.uk. And obviously you did touch on how there's a good network of people actually at the moment helping those people that are quite vulnerable, and that's definitely one of the better parts of this actually, is it seems to have brought out the best in people, and people have generally wanted to help. And I can't remember what we saw nationally, but the amount of people that are volunteering nationally is just an incredible number.
6,000, something like that, yeah.
So is there anything specifically, so for example, there's someone who's maybe in a council house that's owned by Waverley Borough Council. Obviously, we've heard had a lot of businesses that have shut down, and people are maybe struggling to get paid as well as they normally would be. Is there anything that Waverley Borough Council could do for someone who is in a Waverley Borough Council house and maybe is struggling to pay rent?
Yeah, talk to us. If we can see that there's a real problem, we'll try to help. So if you've lost your job because of coronavirus, or you've been furloughed but the money isn't coming through, or anything like that, we'll try to help, either looking at the rents, maybe paying it a bit later, looking at the council tax. Government's provided some extra money to help people who are on council tax benefit, so they can get a bit more. And businesses, at the moment, fewer than half the businesses that we believe qualify for the government's grants of 10,000 and 25,000 have actually applied. And the reason for that may be that on the government website it says you don't need to apply, the council will come to you, and so we will. But if it's urgent, if your business really needs that money to help tide you over, do give us a call. We'd like to help.
Okay. And I know you did touch on that as well, but I assume that it does extend to sort of like council tax as well, because obviously that will impact a lot of people, nearly pretty much everybody here. It's the same situation, right? They can contact the council if they're having any problems with paying council tax. That's
right. We're not offering a general rebate to everybody, because not everybody is actually losing out from the current situation. A lot of people are still getting their incomes and whose situation hasn't actually changed. I think your viewers will probably agree that it's right to concentrate the money on the people who are suffering, the people who've lost their jobs, people who need help. So don't ring up if you're doing all right. They might, I'd like some money off council tax. But if you're in trouble, call us. We'll help if we can.
Okay, brilliant. And actually, one of the things I think one of your portfolios actually on the Waverley Borough's parking. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because I've noticed actually in my one bit of exercise I'm allowed to do, especially going through Crown Court car park, it's very empty at the moment. Are those people actually still being charged to actually park there?
No, we decided about a week, 10 days ago that it wasn't reasonable to charge people, because you're not actually supposed to be driving around unless you've got a good reason for it. And the good reason might be essential shopping. It might be because you're a carer, you're coming to look after someone. It might be because you work in the supermarket. And I think we're all realizing for the first time, in many cases, just how important the people who work in the food industry, in supermarkets are, because we'd be lost without them. So we felt that for those people, it was actually unfair to charge them to come and help us. The general population are actually not supposed to be driving around just for fun, you and I. We felt that the car parks are mainly going to be used by people who are in some way helping. And so we felt it was right not to charge. And once the emergency is over, then we'll start charging again. And we have to, because it's part of the council's income.
It's obviously a big part of the revenue, so that's quite a big decision to make. But yeah, I think I saw something. I think I did actually count in Crown Court car park, and I think it was like 17, I think, that day, which was quite busy. I've definitely seen it a lot lower, probably single figures. So that's just because I'm quite lucky enough to live right in the centre. Is there anything else actually that you wanted to add, Nick, at all on Waverley Borough's response to this pandemic?
We are learning as we go. We are genuinely all trying to do our best, and the officers in particular are really knocking themselves out. The council chief executive was telling me that he had a whole stream of council employees who said to him, it doesn't matter what the grade is, it doesn't matter, I don't expect any extra money, just deploy me wherever I can help most. And we are prioritizing the crisis, and I hope that people will understand that. So it means that if it takes a little longer to get some routine inquiry processed, that's probably for a good reason. It's not that we're sitting around, well, not me anyway, but it's not the officers are sitting around drinking tea. It's because they're really busy. So, ring if you need to, but please accept that it will take a little while. One thing on the rubbish deliveries, Biffa, who got the contract from us, have been really good so far. They do have a proportion of their staff ill, but so far they've been able to carry on with all three types of pickup. So general waste, recyclables, and green waste. The only thing that they haven't done is the automatic road sweeping. And we feel, okay, if there's one thing that can wait a couple of weeks, they hit me that. They do say that they don't want to bring all their drivers together to all set out at the same time because of the social distancing rules. So we ask people to be patient. If your bin is picked up later than usual, or even the next morning, be tolerant. They're really working hard to make life as good as possible for all of us. On the bulky waste, the Surrey County Council has closed its general waste sites. So on the 13th, Guildford and Waverley are going in together to set up a bulky waste drop-off site.
Okay.
And the details will appear on the Waverley website. I don't know them myself yet, but So if you've got bulky waste, please hang on to it for 10 days and the opportunity will be there. We are seeing an increase in fly tipping, and we'd really like to discourage that. As part of the emergency, just hang on to your stuff a bit longer.
I can actually say, in terms of bin collection, they were here bang on time, I think, this morning. I get to hear them come in the morning, and they were bang on time. So no complaints, at least from me. And I think I've heard from a lot of councils, not just here, but obviously like in London, actually all across that, they have seen a big increase of fly tipping. So obviously it's quite good that Waverley and Guildford are joining forces to try and come up with a solution to that, because in reality that will make things a lot easier. Like you said, road sweeping, you don't have to do that because obviously there's less people on the road, there's less people on the pavement, so you'd like to think you wouldn't need to do as much. But if we're going to create more work for them, it's going to make it harder in the long run, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. We're all having to compromise a little bit, and we are relatively lucky at the moment because there are areas in the country where the rubbish services have been harder hit, and where they're having to cancel some of the services. That may happen here when it gets worse over the next few days, but I'm not predicting it. But if they did have to stop doing something, it would be the green waste first, and then the recyclables, and if at all possible, they'll want to pick up the general waste. But so far, they've been able to pick it all up, and they're doing a great job.
Yeah, I think I've seen some councils or some boroughs in London have already sort of scaled back their recycling. So that could always be a possibility. I have actually got a question for you, Nick, actually, if I can get it up on the screen for you. It's from, let me show it up if I can. There we go. It's from Natasha. Can you mention regulation on bonfires, please? I don't know if you've got any idea about regulation on bonfires at the moment, but I've seen quite a bit of controversy because obviously rules have been tightened, I believe, on this for some reason. Do you have any insight on that at all, Nick?
Well, bonfires in themselves are legal, and they are still legal. But obviously, in the current situation, we want to minimise the kind of activity which gets in people's lungs. So we would like to discourage people from lighting bonfires, especially firstly the general safety issue, which always applies. Also, if it's close to anyone else, please think of them. And it's like all the other restrictions, we're talking about the next period of weeks, perhaps months, but we're not talking about forever. And for that period, we hope people will be helpful.
Yeah, I think it's a general rule, isn't it, just to be considerate of everyone at this moment. It's quite difficult. We've all had to change our sort of habits and what we do. But as long as I'm just trying to remember just to be considerate of everybody else in this time. And that's all we can really say to people at the moment, isn't it? It's just make sure you think of others. Brilliant. Okay. I think we've got, I think if that's everything in terms of the Waverley Borough Council, obviously we are still the South West Surrey Labour Party. So I think it would be remiss of us if we didn't talk about the recent leadership election results that were released on Saturday, confirming that Cllr Starmer was going to be the new leader of the Labour Party. And I know that you wrote an article for Labour List, which is, to those that are unaware, is a Labour website, not independent of the party, but writes about Labour. But I know you wrote a bit about Cllr Starmer being elected there. Have you got anything to add on that at all, Nick?
Yeah, I'd like to. I should warn viewers I'm kind of switching off the non-partisan mode, because up to now, everything I said would, I think, be agreed by all the other parties. I'm now talking as chair of the South West Labour Party. And I think firstly, during the crisis, it's essential that we do what Keir Starmer said and what practically everybody across the party has said, which is to work constructively together. And I think when we're all, to a greater or lesser extent, in live danger, then it's slightly ridiculous if we sit around squabbling about whether the train ought to be nationalised or not. We should recognise the extreme emergency and pull together. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't identify areas where the government is missing something out. And that's actually in their interest too, because if you look at autocratic countries where there's nobody who argues with the government, sometimes they get things wrong and there's nobody who dares to tell them. Now, I think the areas where we're seeing most difficulty at the moment is, firstly, the NHS and care staff are being thrown into this battle with inadequate equipment. And I'm not going to assign blame, because honestly, there's time after the crisis to look at that. But it is crucial that this is given absolute priority, even for the practical reason that if the nurse or doctor or the carer is asymptomatic, infected, but not showing it, then they can pass it on. And so it's really important for them that we get the testing equipment as soon as possible as a priority. Secondly, there are people who are falling through the various hastily constructed safety nets. And this is not a criticism of the Chancellor, because honestly, he's done it very much on the hoof. He's just had to think about it. But it's one of our jobs to represent the people who are most in need. And that, for instance, is people who are renting, who suddenly lost their jobs. The government's given them a guarantee against immediate eviction. That's fine, but what happens a few months down the line? They are looking at losing their homes in a way that people on mortgages are not necessarily, because they're getting concrete help with the mortgage. And I think it's part of our job to say we should be helping both groups, people with mortgages and people renting, because honestly, as we come out of this, people want to be secure in their homes. We can see it's going to be a difficult time, but having that basic security is going to be absolutely crucial, because otherwise we'll have a social crisis instead of a health crisis. And then there's the self-employed, taxi drivers, hairdressers, everyone else in that category. They are in principle being helped, but the problem is the delay. So HMRC will write to you if you're self-employed. They say they'll do it by June at the latest. June's a way off. And I think it's one of the jobs of the Labour leadership to challenge that and say, ask every day for an update. How far have we got? When's it going to happen? We want people to get that help as soon as they possibly can. And then we want an economic plan that gets the economy back off the floor in a way that doesn't rebuild all the inequalities, all the insecurities, and all the threats to our climate and well-being that we're familiar with from the life and the society that we've had up to now. After World War II, when Britain was really devastated, people nonetheless felt we don't want to just go back to a depression we had before, we want something new. And out of that, we got the National Health Service. And what I'd like to see above all would be we move towards a national care service to match the National Health Service, so that people felt when they became dependent, and everybody will at some point, that the society is there to help them. But at the moment, it's very much on the edge. Everybody recognises its problem. We need the courage and the clarity to see our way to really making a difference there.
Yeah, I think I know that we sometimes see quite a lot of people always trying to draw comparisons maybe to Second World War and how we got through that and everything like that. But as you've touched on, it was such a monumental achievement, the Attlee government, the Attlee Labour government after the Second World War to enact the Beveridge Report, to create the NHS as we know it, which is frankly at the moment saving lives. And it all stems from that. And, it was a really tough time where we, it was absolutely awful. And we actually managed to come together as a country and say that we didn't want to go back to that or anything like that. So I feel like it's a bit of a funny time to have a Labour leadership contest, isn't it, during all of this? But we're all hoping that with this new sort of new future for the Labour Party, we can actually hold this government to account properly.
Yeah, I think Keir Starmer is the right man for the moment, because the thing that characterises him is that he's got a very forensic, precise mind, and the government, for all its efforts, is still making things up on the hoof. And I can see they've got to, but it needs somebody in Parliament saying, why haven't you done that? What exactly do you mean by this? So even on simple things like social distancing, we are still debating 2 weeks after it was announced exactly what it means. It doesn't mean that you can go for a long walk or only a short walk. Can you go for a walk on the other side of town? Things like that were not really pinned down originally. And I think that someone like Starmer, although, let's be honest, he's not the most exciting person in the world, but I think at the moment we don't actually want excitement. We want dedication, we want idealism, and we want precision. Because we're going to need that getting out of this crisis. We're going to work together.
Yeah, I think you've touched on something, at least with the social distancing. I see all these adverts saying that we all need to stay home, and everyone knows that. I really think they should be using those to sort of clarify, that it's one walk or not sunbathing kind of thing, if you know what I mean. Those are the kind of things that you can hold the government to account, because since the election, the Labour Party has been a little bit paralysed actually because of this whole contest. So I'm quite glad that it's actually managed. I know that some people thought about postponing it, and I know that the Liberal Democrats have postponed their contest, but I think it was quite important that we got it done so that we could actually then be able to hold them to account.
Yeah, I think people want a serious, responsible opposition who will engage and argue about the details, because that's the only way you actually get an optimal result. In the same way as in my day job, I work in an environment where we have to develop new policies, and it's important that you don't just get people saying, yes, boss, let's do that. You actually get an argument, and that's the way you develop a clear policy that actually works and which covers the bases and doesn't forget things. And then in the longer term, why did we join the Labour Party? It was because we wanted a juster society where we no longer felt that we were deeply divided, and we no longer felt that people in low-paid professions were somehow esteemed less. And I think this crisis has taught us that people who honestly are not very well paid, but who work in the caring services and the health service and supermarkets, that they're as important or more important than many of the people who we see on the glossy pages of newspapers.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. We've actually got one question which is from one of the admins of the South West Surrey Constituency Labour Party. So I can't actually see who it is, but I'll show it anyway. I don't know if you can see that now, Nick. So it says, Nick, does being positive and concentrating on pulling together preclude holding local MP Jeremy Hunt to account for starving the NHS of resources over the many years he was Health Secretary?
I think that it's not the moment, to be honest. We've all got our opinions on what Jeremy Hunt has done in the past and what he did as Health Secretary. At the moment, we've got to solve the bloody crisis. And let's focus on that. Afterwards, I think we'll want a committee of inquiry into what went wrong. And that should look not just at the people immediately responsible, but also look back at the people who cut the funding for the health service in real terms, who cut the public services and imposed a decade of austerity, which the government has now flung aside without any particular concern. They used to say we found the magic money tree because we wanted to have free broadband. We've now got a forest of magic money trees. And I think we want a more consistent policy. I think we want to be able to look back at what went wrong, but also to look forward. And I think what we say to Jeremy is, regardless of what mistakes you've already made, we hope that you'll work with us for a better future for Waverley and for South West Surrey in general. And when it comes to an election, we'll give you a fair fight. You can
always guarantee that.
Yeah, and if people want to join us in that effort, they're more than welcome. They just say join Labour on Google it, join Labour, and you'll be able to join. You'll be more than welcome to our events.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's been it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, was joining the Labour Party and getting involved and standing for council and helping you get elected, actually, Nick, to the Binscombe Ward for the first. You're the first elected Labour councillor in the area for about a generation. You and George Wilson.
That's right. It's a great privilege for both George and me. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that we can do when we have Labour councillors, is that we can actually work together to help resolve these issues and help bring an end to crises. And we can also get to hear straight from you what's happening on the council.
Contact me anytime if you'd like to. Yeah, the official address, nick.palmer@waverley.gov.uk, or you can write to my private address, that's nickmp1@aol.com, so whichever you prefer.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for letting me set this all up and calling you on a Saturday to try and get this all arranged. I hope it's been informative for everyone. So what I'll do towards the end, Nick, is I will just run through the list of everything that is the list of resources that people can access in this time. So if you just bear with me 2 seconds. So for once again, we got this is the website for Waverley Borough Council, which is www.waverley.gov.uk. This is the phone number for, was that for the coronavirus action phone number?
That's for the Surrey coronavirus.
Okay, I put that in the quite wrong place. But obviously there's town councils as well. So there's Godalming Town Council website there. It's godalming-tc.gov.uk. Or if you're in Farnham. Farnham is farnham.gov.uk. And obviously you can't forget Haslemere either, which is hazemeretc.org. There was also one other thing, which was a comment, actually. It was from Sheila. So if I just share that really quickly. There is a list of local businesses who are operating both home deliveries and an assortment of goods and some food takeaways on the GTC website. I think it's really important that we support them as much as possible.
Thanks, Sheila. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. So if people want to see the website for that's there as well. I've had a good look at them as well, and the information on all of those is really good, and also actually on just the main government website is fantastic as well. Actually, it's updating constantly, which has been really helpful in what is a constantly updating situation. Right, I think we'll call it a day there, Nick. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much, everyone. See you later.
Thanks, Toby.
Bye.